Moving on to our third question, we're told to show the location of the following joints: the hinge joint, the ball and socket joint, the pivot joint, and the gliding joint. So in a question like this, what is required is to mention what type of, or which bones or which part of the body has these types of joints. And we know that the joint is any area which is between two different bones. So between two different bones, that is called a joint. So we have four types of joints here: the hinge joint, the ball and socket joint, the pivot joint, and the gliding joint. To answer a question like this, you have to know what are these joints, or how do these joints work. For instance, a hinge joint works in only two directions, that is upwards and downwards, while the ball and socket is universal, that is, it works in all directions. The pivot joint works by going side to side, while the gliding joint glides only, shows a sliding motion. So in asking yourself what part of the body can do these motions, for instance, in the hinge joint, we can get a picture that the elbow works for the hinge joint. This is because the elbow only works by going up and down, the elbow point. While the ball and socket, we have the knee, we have the hips, and we have other parts of the body in which can work in more than one direction. Also, we have the pivot joint. The pivot joint, we all know that only one part can move from side to side, and that is the neck can move side to side, from one side to the left or to the right, but moving the neck up and down is very difficult. Also, we have the gliding joint, in which the shoulder and spines work perfectly, as the shoulder and spine joints tend to slide on each other. Moving on to our fourth question, we're told to mention types of muscles, the types of muscles found in the body. So we all know that the body is made up of muscles after bones, but there are mainly three types of muscles. You have to know which types of muscles are found in the body. So here the question asked, the answer required is to just state the types of muscles here. So there are the three types of muscles, in which first we have the skeletal muscle, or we can call it voluntary muscle or striated muscle. This type of muscle works and is found in the skeleton and other joints, in which work by the brain. I mean that the voluntary muscles work within the conscious of the individual. That is, the individual is conscious of them working. We have the smooth muscle or involuntary muscle, which is found in most internal organs, such as the alimentary canal and so on, in which the involuntary muscle works without the person's conscious. That is, they work automatically, involuntary, without the consciousness of the individual. And we have the cardiac muscle. The cardiac muscle is a special type of muscle which is found in the heart only. So in the heart only, this type of muscle is striated and has a nucleus, but one distinguishing characteristic is that it never gets tired. So the cardiac muscle is a type of muscle found in the heart which never gets tired. Moving on to our final question for the day, we're told to define the following terms. So we have a few terms here, and we are asked to define them. Like I said before, defining something means you give your knowledge on what the thing is. So for instance, we are told to define the following terms. We have movement. First of all, movement and locomotion, the first two. Movement and locomotion are two words which are often mixed together, in which a person thinks that movement is locomotion and locomotion is movement. But we know that all locomotions are movements, but not all movements are deemed as locomotion. So a movement is nothing but the change in position or posture of an organism. The change can occur in many ways. It can be internally or it can be externally. So any change in posture or position of the organism is known as movement. So the organism can be sitting right there, but it can be seen to be moving as it changes its posture, even though it stays in the same position. But it can change its posture, that is, it can look from left, it can look from the right, it can turn back, it can turn forward. That is movement, but it's not locomotion. While locomotion is the self-powered patterned motion of limbs or other anatomical parts by which an individual moves from place to place. So we can see that locomotion is the self-powered patterned motion of limbs. So locomotion is nothing but the patterned motion of limbs or other anatomical parts. That is, it can be the cytoplasm, it can be flagella, it can be anything else. But the individual should move from place to place. So that is what locomotion is. First of all, it should be self-powered. That is, the organism itself should move. It should use its own energy. Also, the limbs or other anatomical organisms or other anatomical parts should actually have a pattern in movement. So the movement should be patterned. The motion should be in a pattern, in a certain pattern. And the individual should move from place to place. That it moves from one place to the other. That is what locomotion is. And we have response. So we can ask ourselves, what is a response? A response is nothing but a reaction by an organism to a specific stimulus. So when an organism shows any type of reaction towards a stimulus, that is what's called a response. So a response is nothing but any reaction towards a stimulus. That is what response is. It can be either a negative response in which it moves away from it, or it can be a positive response in which it moves towards it. It depends, but all is known as a response. Also, and finally, you have a Nastic movement. A Nastic movement is the type of movement or plant growth that is not oriented towards the stimulus. That is, it does not depend on the stimulus, any Nastic movement. So the Nastic movement does not orient towards or against the stimulus. It just occurs to the organism itself. For instance, in plants, we have what we call thigmonasty. That is a Nastic movement towards touch. The plant Mimosa pudica is seen to close its leaves when touched, but it does not close its leaves towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus. It just closes its leaves. So the Mimosa pudica shows a Nastic movement in which it does not orient either towards or against the stimulus. So that's what a Nastic movement is. That is all for today. I hope you enjoyed our question and answer session for today. Join us next time as we continue to look into common questions which are brought in the biology syllabus. You are with me, Munir Mustafa Hamid, and from all around me, thank you very much and have a good day.